Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and on this episode I spoke with comedian and writer Kathleen Hughes. Kathleen's a return guest to the podcast, having appeared in an episode with Jay Lafferty ahead of last year's Fringe. This episode was recorded earlier this year ahead of Kathleen's final few performances of her 2024 Fringe show Cryptid. We talk about her experience at last year's Fringe, the creative and financial reasons for taking on a 2-year show cycle, and having a shorter work-in-progress run of her new show Twig at this year's Fringe. We also talk about her further development of the Humour Mill, which is a series of workshops and meetups that happen monthly in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and also discuss why comedians love CMAT so much. I started by asking Kathleen to give a brief introduction to herself.
Hi there, I'm Kathleen. I'm a Glaswegian comedian and writer, and I spoke to Dan last year about preparing to take my debut show Cryptid to the Fringe, so I'm back to discuss how that went.
Yes, so it was January 2024, I think. As an overall thing, how was Edinburgh?
Yeah, it was really, really good. I had a really good experience. I think a lot of that was to do with expectations. I think there's a huge amount of pressure. And I do know where this comes from. It comes from Edinburgh as it exists, and it comes from awards, and it comes from PR and all that sort of thing. But I think there is a huge amount of pressure for your debut to be like the biggest thing you've ever done or ever will do. And I think very early on, I said to myself, if your debut is the best thing you ever do, that would be sad. Like, this has to be your first one, not your best one. I want it to be good, don't get me wrong, I want to put on a really good show. I want it to be the best that I can do now, but I'm not going into debt for a show. Like, I can't afford to do that, and I don't want to do that. So my goals were to have a good show that I really liked, that I was proud to do, to get some good reviews, and to not lose loads of money. And I achieved all those things, so that's great. So overall, it was tiring, and it was definitely a learning curve. But in hindsight, yeah, I think it went about as well as I could have hoped for, still being realistic about, obviously in the back of your head, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be noticed, and I'm going to get an agent, and but the realistic voice that needs to be a wee bit louder when you are actually trying to, do something where you don't completely destroy yourself in terms of workload or financially. It went about as well as I think I could have hoped for in that sense.
Yeah, I guess it's really hard to have that balance. Obviously, you have to have faith and belief in yourself, and you want to say, yes, I can put on a good show. Yes, people will like it. But yes, you have to kind of temper expectations to say that the level of competition is enormous, and that, getting found, getting seen, within that month is so difficult.
Yeah, it's an extremely competitive field because there's so much on, but there's also so much good stuff on, and that's something that I didn't really want to lose. When I did my work in progress, that was at 12 o'clock, so I was through in Edinburgh for the day then, and I had lots of opportunities to go and see different shows, and it was watching other shows and watching comedians that I like and who I think are good writers. And I love show concepts. Like, this is my favourite time of year because people start releasing their show posters and things like that. So seeing all those things is what really kind of inspired me to take my little work in progress and make it into like a bigger concept or something a bit more unusual, something that spoke to me a wee bit more. So I didn't really want to lose that from the Fringe. And I think it's very easy to say and it's very difficult to put into practice, but trying to take the competitive element out of it, because you are going to be reading reviews that are great when you feel like you've not had a very good day, and you're going to be seeing people get a lot of hype, and it's very difficult when you've put so much work and time into it to feel like you're not getting the same level. You need to take a big girl step back and say those people are good. They have also done loads of work. Them being successful does not take away from the fact that you have a great show and you're loving doing it, and people are enjoying it. So it was a bit of a psychological boot camp in terms of like actually working in an industry where you compare yourself to other people a lot. But I think it was good. I think I learned a lot from it.
Calling it Cryptid, was the aim that, you kind of thought it's not, with something like that, you can always move other parts into it. It doesn't have to be about a specific event in time that then the show sticks. I mean, was that a deliberate decision, or just kind of, you were kind of piecing things together when you had to kind of come up with a title and kind of go out with it?
I think I just kind of thought it was a fun word. I knew I wanted to do something kind of spooky paranormal because that's something I've been interested in since I was a kid, and then I wanted to kind of bring that into it. It was mostly about having difficulty as you get older with realizing that other people might perceive you in ways that you can't do anything about, and that reminded me a lot of, I don't know, like being seen and being perceived. Makes me think of those like photos of Bigfoot, like looking over, I would say her, I don't know, I've anthropomorphized Bigfoot into like a girl that I could hang out with. And also tying into that the idea that not knowing, who you are or what you're going to become is actually fine. You don't need to. I was such a know-it-all kid, and I think I still find that difficult as an adult, and I think a lot of people do. Like, you just have to become more comfortable with uncertainty. And the reason that I really liked like cryptids and monsters and stuff was because there was no proof. There was nothing you could, it was fun. So I knew I wanted that to be the concept. And then, I think I liked the word cryptid just because I think it's kind of fun. It's a fun word. I think people look at it and go, oh, I think I kind of know what that is, but I'll read a bit more and see. And also, as you say, it's pretty loose. I like I don't know if this is a good marketing, but I like it. I like an abstract noun as a name for a show. I'm always reading the blurb. So I thought that was a good one.
Like I said, we spoke a year and a bit ago. If you now was on that call then, what would have been the key things you'd have said to kind of make sure you do this or don't forget about that?
Yeah, I think stuff that was said, like to be entirely honest, and I think it is better for us as creatives, as performers or whatever, to be honest about these feelings. You will feel feelings that you don't want to. You will, I don't want to say jealous, that feels too strong, but you will look at other people and say, oh, I want that. And there are so many elements to success that are, you don't know until you're part of the industry. So for example, like I did all my own PR. I had no idea about anything to do with PR. So I went to a very helpful workshop by LeMayonaise.
Yes, we've had Zoe on before, yes.
Yes, they're fab. So they delivered a really good workshop about doing your own PR. So I went to that so I could get my stuff sorted. You don't know, or rather Kathleen a year and a bit ago didn't know how much of it is emailing and saying, can I please be on your list of shows about this at the Fringe, or I'm doing the Fringe this year, I'd write an article for your magazine about why I wrote this show. These sorts of things. People don't come to you and say, oh wow, we've noticed you. They don't to me anyway. So it's all of this. It's a lot of, I don't think of myself as a competitive person. I think in my day-to-day life I'm not at all, and I don't get jealous of my peers or anything. Those aren't feelings that I have. At the Fringe, it is just a bit, it's very intense, and you start to compare yourself to other people in ways that as a person that's not the way you are. It's just a lot going on, and you probably haven't slept properly, and you probably aren't eating properly, and your schedule is all over the place. So there was a day or two where I was like, I think this is making me a bad person, and I just hadn't slept. I think there is a lot to learn about being a comedian, and it is an industry. There's a comedy industry. It is not just, people turning up with a show that they've written. There is marketing involved. And that's not to say it is this big horrible industry where you can only be successful if you have money, which, in some cases having money will lead to, I don't know, better marketing or more PR or whatever. Yeah, that is just a reality. But there's all sorts of cogs in it, basically. This is not all just chance. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into this.
And I think I saw you did some kind of Instagram advertising and things like that. I mean, it's always difficult to kind of say, well, I did this and it created this many sales, because, we say I spend an hour flyer in and it brings in 10 people or whatever. I mean, is it just a case of just try lots of things and hope something clicks?
I think so. I think I tried a lot of different things. Flyering, as you say, putting stuff on social media, boosting it on social media. I did different like videos and stuff. So yeah, it is kind of just see what happens. It's such a busy space with everyone is trying to sell tickets to everything, and your show, you need to write something that speaks to you. You can't make it speak to everyone in the world. It will just not be the thing for some people. So you need to throw lots of stuff at the wall, and you'll never like people who came along to the show. Like there were people I had from school that I was friendly with in school, but we weren't like best friends or anything. They came along, they told their friends. People who had just seen the poster and liked it, people who had heard me on a podcast. So this was something that I found really fun as well, is that I would recommend if anyone is doing like PR, their own PR for a show. If there is a concept in your show that fits into a magazine or a podcast or some sort of publication that isn't comedy based, go and do that. So there's a podcast I've been listening to for years called Real Life Ghost Stories. It's one of my favorite podcasts. It's like my comfort podcast. And I got in touch with Emma, the person who runs it, and I said, I love scary stories and I find them really comforting, like the unknown of it all is just very exciting, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wrote this show. I would like to come on your podcast. Actually what I did was I offered her 2 free tickets for her and her friend if she was up at the Fringe, just because, I've listened to her scary stories, so if she wants to listen to mine for free, that's fine. And she offered me to come on the podcast and talk about why I think cryptids are so fun and interesting. So it's nothing really to do with comedy. It's nothing to do with everyone is, telling you they're funny. So if you have something that's slightly different, go for that. I found that helpful as well. So it's really just kind of diversifying everything. And if you're doing it yourself, you can do whatever you want. So just try it. I mean, if it doesn't work, the worst that's going to happen is it's not going to get very many views. It's no biggie.
And so for doing a month in total, if I've kind of said this kind of question to other people, if someone came and saw the first show in the month and the last show, would they notice a marked difference?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I think so. I think it was like I am the kind of person who, even when like my first 5 I wrote out longhand, like I'm very kind of methodical in terms of like writing stuff out. So I think structure wise, or there wouldn't be a huge difference in terms of, obviously you add things that work and you build and grow from it, but in terms of just performance and being comfortable on stage and being comfortable in the show and being able to, like, day one, obviously I was like, oh my gosh, if I forget this bit, then that bit's not going to make sense, and you're thinking as you're speaking, which means you can't be as present or perform as well as you would like to. So by the end of the month, you're just in it and it's comfortable, you know what you're saying, and you have a bit more space to say, to ask the audience a question and work with them a little bit. So that to me was huge. Being a person who likes stuff to be like very kind of planned out and what's the word I'm looking for, structured. Performing so much that you can see how you can have all of that. You can have all of that and still be comfortable and still perform and still be present in the room. It's not one or the other. That really helped me a lot in terms of my performance. Like even since the Fringe, I think I have that kind of for good now, which is nice.
And obviously it's not the case that, once the Fringe is done, you put it in a box. You're doing it at Glasgow Comedy Festival, I believe, must be in the next couple of weeks, taking it down to Brighton. Obviously, logistically, it's kind of difficult for those kind of things. I mean, what kind of goes into choosing, Brighton as opposed to, say, Leicester or anywhere else?
It was that I have never been to Brighton. I really wanted to go, and I'd heard good things from a few Glasgow-based acts like Freya and Lauren's Hot Death Theatre, who you had on recently, Gabe Featherstone, Ruth Hunter. These are all acts who, and I mean this with so much love, I would describe as weird.
Yes, I'm doing Gabe next week, actually.
Oh, lovely. I don't think he would be offended at all by being described as a bit weird. But they really enjoyed Brighton, and they seem to have had, pretty successful shows. I think it's always when you're taking a show to somewhere that you're not from, or you're not in that scene, especially when you're not a big name, it becomes a wee bit scary because you think, oh, no one's going to come and no one knows me, and, you know, is it a waste of money and all this sort of thing. But you get to do your comedy to a new audience in a new venue. Like, it's not a waste. I wouldn't say it's never a waste, because I don't know what could go wrong. If you tour your show, I don't want to go on record and say that it's always a good financial decision to, anyway. But to me, it's always a good experience to try your act somewhere else, especially if you have kind of references to different like cultures or stuff that is a wee bit more based on your home. The show I'm writing just now is a lot more kind of about Scottish stuff, so I'll be really keen to do exactly that, take it to different places in England and make sure that it works regardless of where people are from. So basically, I heard that Brighton was just like a nice festival and a nice place, and I've never been, and I thought, well, what a great opportunity to, you know, have a reason to go somewhere and experience it kind of when something exciting is happening there as well, and see lots of shows. So we'll go for a long weekend, and that'll be very nice.
So Cryptid now, so obviously you did the month, you're taking on these kind of tours, the festivals. Is that it then for Cryptid? Does it kind of get put to one side, or do you think you'll kind of bring it back out now and again? Or, you know, you said you're doing another work in progress, and kind of how do you balance having kind of two shows on the go at once?
Yeah, I think, oh, it feels a bit sad to say, but I think this may be it for Cryptid. Glasgow will be the last Scottish show, I think, which is nice because I'm doing it with the Stand, which is like a huge milestone for me, very kind of home club vibes. So that's really exciting. And then getting to take it to Brighton will be fun too, because it's, you know, it's a new festival, and it's going to be kind of, but I think that might be it. And there's some material in there that I love, and that obviously, because it was my first show, it was like just an amalgamation of, let's be honest, it was squishing all my club sets into a loose theme, which I think I did quite successfully, but that, you know, that's everyone's first show, is their best bits. So there were some bits that, you know, I still love and I might use in club sets and stuff like that, but I want to write new stuff, and yeah, I don't think I have the kind of brain where I can have loads of ideas going at once. I want to kind of focus in on other things and see where else it can take me. Like, I remember John Agasild, who I write with quite a lot just because I think he has a great brain. He said to me recently, I'll stay focused. I remember quite early on saying to John that I was a bit stressed because I didn't know what else I was going to write. And he said, you never think you'll have another idea, and then you do. And I just hear him in my head a lot when I'm going, oh, that's you done now. You've done all the comedy that's in your brain. There's nothing else. You can't think of anything else. Like, there just will be another idea. What I was going to say was I saw John's work in progress. That was my first show at the Glasgow Comedy Festival on Wednesday night, and it was lovely. It was fantastic. It's just a wee shout out. So yeah, I might bring Cryptid back for like a Halloween special or something, but I don't know. That might be her.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of difficult with the show. I mean, do you think, yes, I want to write, if I write, you know, 5 to 10 minute bits and then I can kind of put them together, or do you think I need some big life-changing thing that I want to write a show about?
I love a theme. So I think, like, I think very generally about stuff that is interesting to me and that I think I would like to hear people speak about, or that I feel strongly about. And then I know a lot of people do like material and jokes and then put it into the theme, which is kind of what I did for the first show. I think in terms of my actual writing style, I prefer like a bigger, what do I want to talk about? And then we put in the funny bits. And now that I've done my first show where I've crammed all the material in, I can work on those kind of shows a bit more. So yeah, I can't really remember if I answered your question. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's kind of, do you have some big, you know, the plan about some big theme about, you know, some big life event, or kind of put,
Sure.
it, put it together. But no, that's kind of fine. Are you kind of doing a full month of work in progress at Edinburgh, or just bits
No,
and pieces?
just bits. Yeah, so a lot more casual. I think first 2 weeks. The kind of theme of the show that I'm working on, I don't want to say stuff on podcast because then it could completely change between now and August. It might not be the same thing. But my family, particularly my brother and my dad, are very interested in doing our family tree and genealogy. So I started to get interested in that as well. And something that I noticed when you're looking up your family tree is like the men have military records and you can find their work records and that sort of thing. But women are born, become wives, become mums, and then die. And you know, there aren't the records of them. And I just think about like all the women that existed that we don't have fun stories about. And I get to be a woman of this like Hughes line where my whole thing is telling stories. And I think that's nice. So it's kind of about Scottishness and cultural pride and what does it actually mean and like maybe jingoism. I don't know. We'll see. I like talking about identities a lot. I think it's interesting, like what psychologically makes you consider yourself part of a certain group or another. It will be funnier by the time I'll think of some jokes to pop in there. But yeah, so that's what I mean. I like to have like a kind of big question and I pick it apart. And those are shows I like as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I love an hour of just like bits. And the people who are great at that are, you know, it is really, really impressive. But I like a big juicy show that's a bit of a thinker as well.
So in terms of kind of doing, you know, kind of like a full show every other year, how much of that is creative and the kind of the time it takes to do stuff, and how much is financial? Because obviously, you know, every year is a risk and you have money up front and all the rest of it.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big part of it for me. I want to be able to afford to do it, quote unquote, properly again next year, to get big out of hand posters and to have a photo shoot and all this sort of thing. And that's not feasible for me yearly. It maybe could be, but I just don't want that risk. To me, it is not something I want to spend my money on for my household, for me as an individual, for my partner. Like, I don't want these to be things we're signing up to yearly. And I think that's pretty fair, you know. And it's strange that I actually really think I'm hearing a lot more people speak about this, that I don't know if it's just within the Scottish scene or whatever, how strange it is to normalise going into debt for a show. And, you know, and yeah, you do need to spend money and things will cost money, and all the people that you're, you know, if you pay a photographer, they deserve to be paid properly for their time, all that sort of thing. Like, I'm not arguing that at all. But it is strange that it is normal to lose thousands of pounds on a Fringe show. And that doesn't need to be the case. So yeah, I think it's good for me to have a year in between financially, but also, you know, I have a day job. I have other stuff that I do. I want to gig. I want to write stuff. I work with Humour Mill. There are different things that I want to do, and I want the show to be good. And I don't want to. I mean, the first show took like 4 years to write because it was all of my bits, and then for the next one to have less than a year to put it together, I just don't think I'd be happy with it or proud of it in the way that I'd want to be. But, you know, you can still do a work in progress. But I think, yeah, to me, it's just a kind of, I was going to say a slower pace. It's not a slow pace at all, actually. It's still quite intense, but yeah, a sensible pace. I don't think we need to be burning ourselves out for something where, I mean, just sustainably in terms of your career, to get burned out every year, emotionally, physically, to lose money, is just not a way to live, to earn money. So yeah.
And in terms of your other stuff, I know I kind of regularly see you're kind of doing a couple of gigs a week, that kind of stuff. I mean, how much is that kind of, you know, if you kind of in your head kind of balance the kind of things, is that keep sharp, keep doing it because you like it, and it's also helps towards a show? I mean, you know, does the show become the big thing that everything is geared towards, or does the club gigging, is that a thing in itself?
It's interesting. So I think without even realising it until you asked me just now, my opinion on that has like changed since doing the Fringe, because I do think obviously when I started getting a few more club gigs and started getting paid a little bit more, I was in the run up to, I knew I was going to do this show. So everything was kind of geared towards, you need to practice that bit, or, you know, put a new bit in here, this sort of thing I knew. And I've really enjoyed since, like, kind of the freedom of doing gigs and doing bits that I just wrote. I just think it's funny and I want to see. It doesn't have a, like, home yet. It doesn't have a show yet. I just had this, like, daft thought. And I think that's something that I really liked as well. Like, right in the first show, I really wanted it to be around these themes and to talk about something that was a bit more important to me. But I really like silly comedy. I love when someone has a silly bit that just, like, makes you giggle and you can't really explain why it's so funny, but they've just, like, nailed it. So I've been writing, like, sillier stuff and just giving myself a bit of space to be like, have fun. This, you know, it doesn't need to be a show yet. You have time. Figure it out.
And so then also now you've got a podcast. I think when I spoke to you with Jay, obviously they had Joy Agenda, which is, you know, still going, which I heard your episode, which was great. Always good to hear CMAT being mentioned.
Love CMAT. I will bring her up on any podcast.
It's kind of interesting. Kind of like, it seems like everyone within comedy seems to love her, because I know Christopher MacArthur-Boyd talks about her a lot, and
yeah.
she obviously strikes a chord with I think the community.
She's dumb in the most respectful way. Like, she doesn't take herself seriously at all. And I think that speaks a lot to how comedians think of stuff. Not to, like, over intellectualize comedy, but there is a way to feel things in a way that's not too serious. And that so much of her music is that, like, these are real feelings, these are real experiences, but it's, you know, it's funny. It is funny in a way, you know. Anyway, sorry. I will talk about CMAT at any point.
So yes, you've talking podcasts. You've got your own now. I know as of now, I think one episode's out. Do you have many in the can ready to come out?
No, so that was a pilot. So that was, we recorded one to see how it went. So that was Richard Brown, to make sure that he gets a shout out, because he put in a lot of the groundwork for that. He was speaking to Patrick from Bespoken Media, who produce a lot of audio content, and they wanted to do something that was a bit more like comedy focused. So Richard approached me and said, would I be interested in coming on the podcast with him? And then, yes, we recorded a pilot with a lovely boy and very funny person, Chris Thorburn, which it just really, really made me laugh. Like, the way that Richie had kind of set up the questions was kind of passag, like kind of mean. And it really, really made me laugh. I kind of didn't see it coming from him. But obviously, like, I think you can tell, I mean, we spoke about this on the podcast as well, like, you can tell when comedians are kind of riffing each other, if they're roast battling or whatever. When they're friends, you feel it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think it was fun. It really, really made me laugh. There's a story about a very difficult gig for Chris at last year's Fringe that, when I think about now, I just laugh out loud. So it's called The Day I Died. And as I say, it's a pilot, so we are keen to make some more. We're just seeing kind of what the reception is. So yeah, I would love to make more. I think it's fun, and we want it to be, like, positive. You know, it's fun when stuff goes wrong. It just is funny, and people like to hear about those stories. Comedians like to hear about those stories. People who are just comedy fans like to hear about those stories. We didn't want it to be a podcast where, you know, we if our guest feels bad, then that's not what we want to do. We don't want to just be bringing up bad stuff, but it's comedians who understand that's the way it goes sometimes, you know, and we're talking about it as that's part of the process. You will have a rough gig occasionally, so yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like film reviews or restaurant reviews. No one wants to know that, you know, the food was good and the service was excellent. They want to know that, you know, it was an absolute disaster and everything's cold. You know, it's much more fun than people's failures, unfortunately. You know, that's just humans.
Exactly. And when it's like a normal part of stand-up, it's not, you will have a bad gig. There's no way to do this in private. So you do have to practice it and sometimes embarrass yourself in front of people. And that's just the way it goes. So it's kind of normalising that part of it as well.
The thing I've always found kind of weird about comedy is that when you're starting out, you probably get your hardest audiences. So it's quite weird. You know, it's not like, you kind of, you know, like in a video game where you get, you know, harder and harder baddies to fight as you get more experienced or whatever. You know, it's kind of when you start, you've got the people who are kind of, well, make me laugh. kind of thing. And so it's I mean, how because I think when we spoke last time, you'd kind of literally done a few gigs and then COVID, and so kind of did you feel you were starting again when you went back in, or did it kind of feel more comfortable?
It felt a lot more comfortable, I think. I just so had the bug when COVID hit. Like, I was just in that high. I was so enamored with it that even Zoom gigs were like so exciting. I couldn't believe that I got to do this. Now that I've been doing it for a while in the real world, I don't know if I'd be so excited about a Zoom gig. But yeah, I think it's true that when you start, it's a lot hard because it's usually in like a room on like a Tuesday, Wednesday night. It's not very many people there. It's just easier when there's more people and it's, there's a good atmosphere and everyone's laughing and everyone's come with the expectation that it's going to be good. So, that all feeds into it. The thing that I really noticed was like going from middle spots to opening was like because obviously when you put up a lineup, you'll maybe put the least experienced person in the middle because that's kind of you have a bit of a buffer. The atmosphere is already rolling. You're nice and safe in there. So when I kind of graduated to opening, I was like, oh, wait, I'm doing the exact same stuff that I did in the middle, but you don't like it as much. And it's because you need to learn to like adjust to the energy in the room. You need to maybe like come in a bit softer and bring them with you, or, you just need to learn all these kind of techniques. And then when you start to kind of progress a bit further, it changes again. But that to me was maybe like the biggest shock to the system because I was like, I've been smashing these middle spots. I don't want to say I'm the funniest person there, but, and then you go on the opener, you're like, oh, wait, no. I was in the easiest spot. That's fine. So yeah, it's interesting. You constantly change gear and then you need to kind of catch yourself up. That's anything, isn't it?
Part of the podcast is this kind of where business and commerce meets the creativity. And there was a really good mailbag episode of Here Comes the Guillotine, if you heard it, where someone kind of said effectively that, how do they make their hobby their business? And, I think the three of them were pretty much don't do that, respect for the art, but in a way that's what all three of them have done. They are all full-time comedians. I mean, from your point of view, would you kind of want to take that leap, or do you like the balance that you have at the moment?
I don't know. I think so. I don't think realistically, and I don't know. So I wouldn't like to say this and have people think that I'm saying it's not possible or whatever. For me personally, I don't know if being a full-time comedian would be a possibility, simply because it's difficult. And it's a lot of work and it's a lot of putting yourself out there, and it's there's a lot of elements to it that I don't know yet if I'm confident or comfortable enough as a comedian to do that. So it really is like a difficult question. Like if an opportunity could come along that makes me completely change that, but I think I would like at some point for comedy in general to be my job. So if that's, I learn more skills in terms of like, I love, as I say, like concepts, I love marketing, I love posters, if I get a bit more skilled in that, and then maybe that's part of my job as well. I get more writing gigs, I do more workshops, I do other things that kind of contribute to working in the comedy industry being my full-time job. I think that would be ideal. But I just think that being a full-time creative in any industry is so changeable that there's no way to say what gigs you'll have, what you don't have. I mean, God forbid, touch wood, something else could happen that means we can't perform for years. So yeah, I think they're totally right. It is so, you need to, if you want to be a professional comedian, it needs to be because you love comedy and you're willing to put in like hours of work on your comedy. The goal can't be to make money from a, I guess, artistic point of view, but even as like a business plan, it's not a good one because there's so many variables that you just can't plan for, really. It's a bit pessimistic, but there you
go. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, you were saying about the humour mill and workshops, and so I know Freya took one of them about kind of physicality in comedy, which was really interesting to kind of hear her talk about that. She was kind of saying that that's not just, for want of a better word, the clowning kind of side. It can be, even she was kind of saying, no, even using your eyebrow can be, help a joke land and that kind of stuff. I mean, how have you found the humour mill stuff, and has that grown since last time we spoke?
Yeah, I think it definitely has, because I was doing a lot more of Humour Mill like on my own. And I was also preparing for the Fringe, so I just didn't have a lot of time. But this year, I'm taking Fringe stuff a bit more casually, and I have more people helping me out, which is fantastic. So we have a wee team that are based in Glasgow and a wee team that are based in Edinburgh, so that we can make sure that like our like open drop-in writing sessions that we have every month, we make sure that those are on the second Monday of the month in Edinburgh and the third Monday of the month in Glasgow, so that people can plan ahead. Whereas previously it had to be like a night that I was free, so we can have, you know, people there. So it's been really good. Like, and I think Freya's workshop was one where I was like, okay, great, this is something worthwhile. So it was really popular. I think it sold out, and exactly as you say there, like I found it really useful. And I was kind of half on it and half in my like admin facilitating that. But it's something that like I feel very self-conscious on stage if I get to a point where I have to like do an action or do a voice or something. There's a little voice in my head that goes, you look silly now, as if that's not the goal. But this is silly now and it's embarrassing and you should be embarrassed. And having a space that's like a safe space to just be embarrassing, to like move as much as you want to move, to try things that you're maybe like, I'd like to do this on stage but I don't feel comfortable enough. You know, there were lots of people there who did have experience in physical comedy and clowning and improv, which is a thing that I need to learn a lot more about. As a stand-up comedian, I'm finding all these different workshops really helpful, because it's all these little skills that you can like bring together and bring into your act. So it's been really nice. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot from people whose my main thing will always be stand-up, but I'm working with a lot of people who that isn't their main thing, and they're comedy creatives and they're involved in the scene, and seeing how all these things work collaboratively together. I got my teeth in my tongue to collaborate there. Can, you know, make everyone a bit stronger as performers, as writers, as, you know, whatever you want to do. It's just been really fun. And honestly, I didn't really mean to say that there. It just kind of came out my mouth, but it has been fun. And it's nice to, you know, once a month sit down and hear how someone's bit has evolved from the last time you heard it, or like to see someone perform a bit that they wrote at one of the writing sessions and for it to go really well. Like, it's just a nice feeling. So yeah, I think it is growing. We're more established in Edinburgh now, which is fantastic, because we would have people sometimes popping across to Glasgow for the writing sessions, which is, I mean, it was really nice, but I did feel a bit bad because those bloody peak train tickets from ScotRail are an absolute bastard. But yeah, so we're in Edinburgh now, and it's good. I would be really interested to hear more about this from people who aren't from the Central Belt, because it's something I'm really aware of. Like, I'm Glaswegian, and we think fucking Scotland revolves around us, and a lot of like funding and everything is around stuff that is in Glasgow or Edinburgh or along the Central Belt. Not to bring up John Agaslold again, he's got his like CMAT. But his show was, he's from Aberdeen originally, and he moved to Glasgow to do stand-up, so he talks about this a little bit. But yeah, I think there are, I mean, what a ridiculous thing to like have to say, like, there are people doing comedy who are great at comedy everywhere. And it, you know, I would be really, really interested to hear a bit more. I kind of don't want to talk on it because I'm so aware that I grew up in Glasgow and my focus is like very Glasgow based. I would be really keen to speak to people who are from the islands, who are from the Highlands, from the borders as well, actually, which I think is quite often overlooked, about the comedy scene and how we can kind of make sure that people are being supported. And yeah, I would love, if you have a Highlands or Islands guest, I would definitely be listening.
Thanks to Kathleen for coming on the podcast. You can find out more details about Kathleen in the show notes, including where to find her podcast, her 2025 Fringe work in progress show Twig, and where to find her online. Thanks for listening.